Maple Street had the kind of silence that pretended to be peaceful. The sun was dropping behind the houses, casting long shadows across manicured lawns and identical mailboxes, the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever made the news. Kids usually rode bikes here. Dogs barked behind fences. People waved without knowing each other's names. That night, none of that felt true. Officer Daniel Reyes slowed his cruiser as he turned onto the block, the tires crunching softly over loose gravel near the curb. The call had sounded routine: welfare check, possible unattended minor. Nothing urgent, nothing alarming, the kind of call officers handled every day. Still, Reyes felt it in his gut before he ever parked. Coda stirred in the passenger-side kennel, nails clicking once against the metal floor. The German Shepherd was 9 years old, graying around the muzzle but still sharp, still alert in a way that made younger officers nervous. Coda didn't move without reason, and right now his ears were forward, his body tense, his amber eyes fixed on something outside the windshield. "You see something, boy," Reyes muttered. The cruiser rolled to a stop in front of a small blue house with peeling paint and a porch light that flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive. No cars in the driveway, no movement inside, just stillness. Reyes stepped out, the evening air cool against his neck. He opened the kennel door, and Coda didn't jump out like usual. Instead, he froze. His paws stayed planted. His chest expanded with a slow, controlled breath. A low sound vibrated in his throat, not a growl, not a whine, but something in between. Recognition, maybe, or warning. "Coda," Reyes said gently, snapping his fingers. "Heel." Nothing. That alone was wrong. 7 years on the force. Hundreds of calls, crowds, fires, gunshots, screaming suspects. Coda had never ignored a command, not once. Reyes felt his pulse quicken. That was when he saw her. Across the street, standing beneath a maple tree stripped half bare by early fall, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. Too thin, too still. She wore a faded pink jacket 2 sizes too big and sneakers with duct tape peeling off the toes. In her hand was a leash. Empty. The leash hung limp, swaying slightly in the breeze like it had lost its purpose. Coda stepped down from the cruiser without being called. Slowly, deliberately. His nose lifted into the air, drawing in scent after scent until his focus locked on the girl. Then he pulled. The leash on Coda's harness snapped tight as the dog surged forward, muscles bunching beneath his coat. Reyes staggered half a step, instinctively tightening his grip. "Whoa, Coda," Reyes barked. The dog didn't even look back. Neighbors began to appear, first one porch door opening, then another. Curtains twitched. Phones came out. A man across the street whispered something to his wife. Someone else murmured, "That dog," onto something. Reyes tried again, firmer this time. "Coda, sit." The command echoed down the quiet street. Coda stopped, but he didn't sit. Instead, he planted himself in the middle of the road, body angled toward the girl, refusing to move forward or back. His tail was low, stiff. His ears stayed locked on her like she was the only thing left in the world. The girl didn't flinch. She didn't wave or smile or look scared the way kids usually did when faced with a police officer and a massive K9. She just stood there, eyes wide and hollow, watching Coda with an intensity that felt far too old for her age. Reyes swallowed. He crossed the street slowly, keeping his tone calm. "Hey there, it's okay. I'm Officer Reyes. What's your name?" No answer. Up close, he could see dirt beneath her fingernails, a scrape on her knee that hadn't been cleaned. The leash in her hand was worn, almost white from years of use. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head once, small, mechanical. "Do you live here?" Reyes gestured to the blue house. She hesitated, then shook her head again. Behind him, Coda let out a soft whine, not impatience, something deeper, something almost pleading. Ray's crouched to be eye level with her. Is there someone I can call for you? Your mom, your dad. At the word dad, something flickered across her face. Not sadness, not exactly, more like fear mixed with certainty. Her fingers tightened around the leash. Still, she said nothing. A radio crackled on Ray's shoulder, dispatch asking for an update. He ignored it for the moment. Coda's friendly, Ray said gently. He's just trying to say hello. That wasn't true, and he knew it. Coda didn't act like this with strangers. He didn't fixate. He didn't disobey. The dog was trained to detect drugs, weapons, missing persons. He responded to scent, stress, danger. Which meant something about this girl mattered. Ray stood and tugged lightly on Coda's harness. Come on, buddy, let's give her some space. Coda resisted. Then slowly he sat. Not in obedience to Ray's, but at the girl's feet. The crowd gasped softly. The girl looked down at him for the first time. Her expression cracked, not into a smile but into something fragile and raw, like relief breaking through a dam. She took one step forward. Coda stood immediately, tail lifting just enough to show recognition. Another step. Coda followed. Ray's breath caught in his throat. Hey, wait, he said, reaching out. The girl didn't run. She didn't look back. She simply turned and began walking down Maple Street, the empty leash swinging beside her leg like she expected someone, or something, to be there. Coda matched her pace perfectly. Not pulling, not hesitating. Following. Ray stood frozen for a heartbeat too long, watching his partner walk away without command, without permission, without explanation. Then he started after them, heart hammering. Because whatever had brought Coda to this girl, whatever invisible thread connected them, it wasn't finished yet. And Maple Street was about to lose its silence forever. The sound of footsteps echoed too loudly on Maple Street. Officer Daniel Reyes followed several paces behind the little girl and Coda, his hand hovering near the radio on his shoulder, unsure whether to call this in or let it unfold. Every instinct he had told him to slow things down, control the situation, take charge. But nothing about this felt like a situation that would respond to force. The girl walked as if she had a destination etched into her bones. Coda stayed at her side, head low, ears alert, moving with a careful reverence Reyes had never seen before. Not on tracks, not during searches. This wasn't duty. This was something personal. Dispatch, Reyes finally said quietly into the mic, not taking his eyes off them. I've got eyes on the minor. She's cooperative but not verbal. K9 is exhibiting unusual behavior. I'm following on foot. There was a pause on the other end. Copy that. Do you require backup? Reyes hesitated. The girl turned a corner without warning. Yes, he said, but keep it light, something's off. They moved past houses with porch lights flickering on one by one, neighbors watching through cracked doors and glowing windows. The murmurs grew louder as people realized this wasn't just a stray kid wandering home. This was a police dog, the police dog, following a child like she was leading him somewhere. Phones came out. Someone started recording. The girl stopped suddenly. Coda stopped too. Reyes nearly collided with them. They stood in front of a yellow house with boarded windows and an overgrown yard. The place looked abandoned. Dead grass, broken fence, a rusted swing creaking gently in the breeze. The girl stared at the house. Reyes took a careful step forward. Is this where you live? She shook her head. Coda sniffed the air, then the ground near the curb. His body tensed again, tail stiff, muscles coiling as if ready to move. Reyes felt a prickle run down his spine. Emily, a woman's voice called from a nearby porch. The girl flinched at the sound of her name. An older woman hurried down her steps, cardigan pulled tight around her frame. Oh, thank God, she said, breathless. I've been looking everywhere for her. Reyes turned. You know her. The woman nodded quickly. She's my neighbor's kid. Emily Harper, her dad. Well, he's been missing for days now. We've all been worried. Reyes glanced back at Emily. Emily, he repeated gently, is that your name? She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. Coda suddenly stepped between Emily and the woman, his body blocking her path. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just stood there, immovable. The woman stopped short. What's wrong with your dog? Reyes tightened his grip on the leash. Ma'am, I need you to stay right there. The woman raised her hands. I'm not a threat, I just want to help. But Coda's eyes never left her. That was when Reyes understood something important. Coda wasn't just attached to Emily. He was protecting her. Emily, Reyes said again, kneeling beside her, can you tell me why you're out here alone? She stared at the ground. Her shoes were mismatched. One lace was missing. The other was tied so tight it dug into her ankle. You're not in trouble, Reyes said softly. I promise. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Emily lifted the leash slightly, just enough for Reyes to notice the name stamped into the worn leather. Buddy. Reyes's chest tightened. That's your dog, he asked. Emily nodded once. Coda inhaled sharply, nose twitching. He leaned forward, sniffing the leash, then Emily's sleeve. His tail gave the smallest wag, barely visible but unmistakable. Recognition. Reyes's mind raced. Missing father, missing dog, silent child. Coda's reaction wasn't coincidence, it was connection. Where Buddy now? Reyes asked. Emily's lips parted. For the first time since he'd arrived, she spoke. He didn't come back, she whispered. Her voice was thin, fragile, like it hadn't been used in a long time. Reyes felt the weight of every eye watching them from the street. He gently guided Emily to sit on the curb, keeping Coda close. When was the last time you saw him? Reyes asked. Emily hesitated, then pointed down the road. We went walking. Just you and Buddy. She shook her head. And your dad. Her fingers clenched into the leash. He said it would be quiet there. Reyes swallowed hard. Where is there, Emily? She looked up at him, eyes glassy but steady. I can show you. A shiver ran through him. Behind them, the woman from the porch shifted uneasily. Officer, maybe she should come inside. It's getting dark. Coda let out a low warning sound, not loud enough to alarm, but clear enough to draw a line. No, Reyes said firmly. She's staying with me. He stood and radioed again. Dispatch, I need child services and another unit to meet me. Possible missing person escalation. Copy. Emily stood too, without being told. She took a step forward. Coda followed. Reyes followed them both. They passed the last house on Maple Street and approached a chain-link gate half hidden by vines and weeds. Beyond it lay a narrow path leading into a stretch of woods the locals avoided. Drainage land. No streetlights. No sidewalks. The girl stopped at the gate. Her shoulders trembled. Coda pressed his head gently against her side. Reyes's voice dropped to a whisper. Emily, what happened out there? Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. He told me not to look, she said, but Buddy did. The woods seemed to lean closer, shadows thickening as night crept in. Reyes felt dread settle deep in his bones. Emily, he said carefully, who told you not to look? She opened the gate and stepped into the darkness. Emily's small footsteps crunched softly over dead leaves, twigs, and hidden roots as she led Officer Reyes and Coda into the edge of the woods. The streetlights faded behind them, swallowed by the shadows of towering oaks and maples, their branches clawing at the sky. Every now and then, a gust of wind rattled loose leaves, making Reyes jump despite his training. Coda padded beside Emily, his coat glinting dimly in the flashlight beams from the officers following behind. His nose twitched constantly, ears swiveling in every direction. Reyes had never seen him like this. Not alert, not on patrol, but focused, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment for years. Emily held the leash tightly, Buddy's name still embossed faintly in the worn leather. Reyes realized she didn't just walk. She commanded Coda in a language only he seemed to understand. Every step, every slight pull on the leash was an instruction, and Coda obeyed without hesitation. "Where are we going?" Reyes asked, keeping his voice low. He didn't want to startle her or Coda. Emily didn't answer. She never did. Her eyes stayed forward, fixed on something deep in the woods. There was no fear in her gaze, only determination. It was terrifying. They passed the first bend, then another. The city's glow disappeared, replaced by the smell of damp earth and decay. Old graffiti on fallen trees and rusted signs told stories of kids who had gotten lost here, of lovers, initials carved in bark, of dangers people didn't speak of. Reyes glanced around nervously. "Emily, are you sure this is safe?" She didn't respond. Coda growled low in his throat, not at her, not at Reyes, but at something unseen ahead. His tail stiffened. The hairs along his spine stood on end. Reyes swallowed hard, tension coiling in his chest. He radioed dispatch quietly. "Unit 3, do you copy? We're approaching a wooded drainage. Keep this line open." Static hissed in his earpiece. Emily paused abruptly at the edge of a small clearing. The flashlight caught her face, pale, streaked with dirt, eyes wide but unafraid. She tilted the leash slightly, and Coda moved to stand directly in front of her, blocking the path forward. He was alert, protective, but calm, like a guardian waiting for the signal. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "He's here." Reyes froze. "Who's here?" Emily didn't answer. She just turned and walked a few steps deeper into the clearing. Coda followed, every muscle taut with anticipation. Reyes noticed movement in the underbrush, a flash of something familiar. A paw, a shadow. Before he could process it, Coda lunged slightly, pulling at the leash. The sound of his growl echoed through the woods, a warning to whoever, or whatever, was near. Emily stopped and crouched, pointing toward a pile of leaves and debris near a rusted drainage pipe. "There," she said softly. Reyes approached cautiously. His flashlight illuminated a worn jacket partially covered in leaves. It was unmistakably human-sized, crumpled in a heap. Near it, a shoe peeked out, mud-stained and scuffed. Emily knelt beside it, fingers brushing against the fabric. Coda pressed his nose to the jacket, sniffing furiously, and let out a bark so urgent it made Reyes jump. Reyes felt the air thicken with tension. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Emily, who is it?" She didn't answer immediately. Her hands trembled as she pulled something small from beneath the jacket, a worn baseball cap, muddy, with a father's initials stitched in faded thread. J.H. Reyes' stomach dropped. "Your dad?" he asked cautiously. Emily nodded once. Her face, still pale, twisted with emotion she hadn't let show before, fear, sadness, and something heavier like guilt. Where is he?" Reyes asked. Emily's lips quivered. "I don't know." Coda's growl deepened, low and guttural. He sniffed the jacket again, then turned and stared at Emily, then back at the drainage pipe. His body language was almost human, confused, urgent, frustrated. Reyes shone his flashlight into the dark pipe. Water ran faintly through it. The shadows were thick, the walls covered in moss. It was impossible to see far, but something shimmered, a movement. "Emily, did he go in there?" Reyes asked gently. She shook her head almost imperceptibly. "Buddy did, then he didn't come back." Reyes knelt beside her. "Buddy, your dog." She nodded, gripping the leash tighter. Her knuckles were white. "Coda, he knows." Reyes realized what she meant. Coda wasn't just here for her, he was here for Buddy. The missing dog, the missing father. Whatever had gone wrong, Coda had tracked it all, and Emily had known instinctively where to lead him. Reyes felt a chill. "Emily, stay close to me. Can you do that?" She nodded, but she didn't take her eyes off the drainage pipe. Coda stepped forward, nose to the ground, muscles coiled. He sniffed, circled, then barked sharply, more insistent than before. The sound echoed through the clearing. Rays moved closer, flashlight in one hand, gun holstered but ready. The woods were silent except for the dripping water and Coda's low growl. Then Emily spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "He's scared, he's alone." Ray's throat went dry. "Who's scared, Emily?" "Them, both of them, they need me." Before he could ask what she meant, Coda surged forward, pulling at the leash. Emily followed without hesitation. Rays ran to keep up. They moved through a narrow path littered with roots and fallen branches, the flashlight beams catching glimpses of movement, small shadows darting, leaves trembling. Coda growled, stopping suddenly in front of a hollowed-out mound of dirt and brush near the drainage pipe. Emily knelt down and whispered, "Buddy." Ray's heart raced. A dog's eyes reflected back at him from the shadows, small and frightened, weak, injured. The sight made him catch his breath. Coda lowered himself slowly, sniffing the smaller dog, nudging him gently with his nose. Buddy whimpered softly, tail tucked, hesitant. But when Emily extended her hand and spoke softly, Buddy inched forward. The two dogs circled each other. Coda pressed his head against Buddy's neck, sniffing, assessing, and then stepped back, giving Emily space. Emily finally spoke to Buddy, voice cracking. "It's okay, you're safe now." Rays watched, stunned. The connection between the two dogs and the girl was undeniable. Coda had remembered Buddy. He had tracked him, and Emily had led them straight to him. But there was still a weight hanging in the air. Rays scanned the clearing again. The jacket, the debris, the hollowed mound. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about a missing dog. Something had happened here. Something serious. Emily stood, holding both leashes now. Buddy leaned against her, trembling, and Coda stayed alert, his eyes scanning the dark woods. Rays' radio crackled. "Unit 3 status." He swallowed, voice steady despite the panic rising in his chest. "We've located the missing dog. Minor is safe, but there's more. We need backup for the human element." Emily didn't flinch. She only whispered, "He's still here, you'll see." Rays felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had no idea what she meant, but he knew whatever was coming next would change everything. The city outside the woods was calm. Maple Street was silent. But inside these shadows, danger, truth, and heartbreak waited, ready to reveal themselves. And Emily was leading the way. The woods were alive with shadows. Every snapped twig underfoot, every whisper of wind through the leaves sounded like a warning. Officer Rays' flashlight cut narrow beams into the darkness, illuminating nothing but twisted roots, wet moss, and the occasional fallen log. Emily led the way, small but determined, holding the worn leashes of both Coda and Buddy. The two dogs moved as if in sync, Coda slightly ahead but constantly checking on Emily and Buddy. Rays had never felt such tension. It wasn't fear exactly, it was anticipation, the kind that comes before the truth crashes down. They approached a shallow ravine. The edge was lined with broken branches and scattered debris. A foul, damp smell rose from below. Coda froze, ears forward, body taut. He let out a low growl that vibrated in the still night air. Rays' pulse quickened. "Emily, stay back a little," he said, though he didn't want to take his eyes off her. She didn't move. She only pointed to the bottom of the ravine, voice barely audible. "There." Rays followed her gaze and saw it first, a shoe mud-caked, partially hidden under a mound of leaves. Then a jacket torn and crumpled. He swallowed hard, his stomach twisting. Coda barked, sharp and insistent. Buddy whimpered softly, backing closer to Emily. Rays carefully edged toward the debris, flashlight steady. He could see more now. A sleeve, a backpack crushed in the dirt, and slowly, something unmistakable, the shape of a human body. Emily's small hand went to her mouth. Her knees trembled as she whispered, "Daddy." The officers who had arrived as backup caught up, flashlights joining Rays'. The ravine was cramped, dark, and dangerous, the sides slick with mud. One officer whispered, "Call this in. This is bigger than a missing dog now." Reyes nodded. His hands shook slightly as he crouched closer. "Sirens now. We need medical and forensics." Coda and Buddy stayed close to Emily, noses down, growls softening but eyes never leaving the form in the dirt. Reyes glanced at the girl. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She just stared, frozen in the terrible stillness of knowing something awful. He realized then that she had seen it before he had. His flashlight caught the man's face, mud-smeared, bruised, eyes closed. A faint trickle of blood ran along his temple. Reyes swallowed hard, stomach knotting. It was unmistakably the man Emily had referred to as her father. Reyes's voice caught as he said, "Emily, are you sure this is your dad?" She nodded slowly, voice breaking. He fell. The officers moved to secure the scene, but Reyes stayed kneeling beside Emily, speaking softly. "We'll get him out. He'll be okay. Help is on the way." She looked at him, eyes wide and glassy. "But Buddy?" Reyes glanced down. Buddy had crawled closer to the father, sniffing and whining softly. Coda nudged him gently, almost as if to say, "He's alive now, don't be afraid." Reyes realized then how extraordinary this was. Coda hadn't just found a missing child or adult. He had found someone's life, led by instinct, memory, and Emily's quiet courage. The officers began to carefully lift the father, supporting him while ensuring neither dog panicked. Emily held the leashes tight, standing still as if she were part of some ritual, waiting for the reunion to happen in its own time. Reyes's radio buzzed. "Unit 3 medics are on scene. ETA 2 minutes." The minutes stretched into an eternity. Emily didn't speak. She only kept looking at her father as if willing him to wake. Buddy nuzzled her leg, tail wagging faintly, sensing her tension. Coda's eyes never left the father. Finally, the medics arrived. They worked swiftly, stabilizing him, lifting him onto a stretcher. The father's eyes fluttered open briefly, confused, scared, in pain, but alive. Emily exhaled for the first time, relief flooding her small frame. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she dropped the leashes for a moment to cover her face. Coda stepped closer, placing a paw gently on her shoulder, then nudging Buddy with his nose. It was a quiet gesture, but Reyes felt the depth of it. These dogs weren't just trained. They were bonded, with each other and with this girl. As the father was lifted onto the ambulance, Emily whispered, "Buddy, you stayed with me." Buddy whined softly, pressing his head against her side. Coda stayed a step back, eyes never leaving the scene, as if ensuring nothing else threatened them. Reyes stood beside her, finally allowing himself to exhale. He looked around the ravine, the dark woods, the debris, and the night sky above. The city beyond the trees felt distant. It was as if time had slowed, the world holding its breath for this moment. But the question lingered in Reyes's mind, and in Emily's unspoken thoughts. How did Coda know where to find them? How did she know where to lead him? Emily didn't answer. She simply held both leashes, standing between the two dogs, silent but resolute. Reyes realized something then that made his chest tighten. Emily had navigated the darkest parts of these woods, alone with two dogs, to find the man she loved. And the truth of how she knew where to go and why Coda obeyed her so blindly was something the city was not prepared for. As the ambulance drove away, headlights piercing the night, the cameras of neighbors' phones caught the image. A little girl, standing in the middle of a dark clearing, flanked by two massive dogs, all three connected by an unbreakable bond. The footage would go viral. The story would shock the city. But behind the cameras, behind the social media headlines, Reyes knew there was more to uncover. Something hidden in the woods that night, something that explained why Emily had been silent, why Coda had refused to leave, and why this tragedy had almost become permanent. He turned to Emily. "Can you tell me everything?" he asked softly. Her eyes flicked to the two dogs, then back to him. "I will, but you have to promise me something first." Ray's nodded. "Anything." She looked down at Buddy and Coda. "They need to know the whole story," she said. "The truth about why we were here, what really happened." Ray swallowed hard. His hand rested on the girl's shoulder, steadying her. He knew the next step was going to reveal more than just a missing father or a lost dog. It was going to expose secrets that the city wasn't ready to hear. And Emily, with her small frame and quiet courage, was about to tell it all. The ambulance's sirens faded into the distance, leaving Maple Street and the surrounding woods drenched in an eerie quiet. Officer Daniel Reyes watched as Emily knelt on the damp earth, clutching both leashes, Buddy leaning against her, Coda sitting alert at her side, eyes scanning every shadow. The tension in the night hung heavier than ever, as if the darkness itself was waiting for her next move. Reyes knelt beside her cautiously. "Emily, can you tell me what happened?" She didn't answer at first. Her small fingers twisted the leashes, the knuckles white with grip. Her eyes were hollow yet piercing, as if holding memories too heavy for anyone else to understand. The silence was long, agonizing. Then she spoke, her voice a brittle whisper. "It was supposed to be safe. We were supposed to be gone, just me, Daddy, and Buddy." Reyes's heart tightened. "Safe from what?" Emily swallowed hard, eyes flicking to Coda and Buddy. "From the yelling. From the nights I couldn't sleep, the things I couldn't understand." She took a deep breath. "Daddy, he said one day we'd leave, all of us, just us three. No more fighting, no more screaming, just quiet. And Buddy, he was part of the plan, he knew." Reyes didn't know what to say. He had responded to countless domestic calls, broken homes, and missing persons. He had never seen the calm bravery in a child that Emily possessed, nor the bond she had with two grown dogs trained to protect and obey. "What went wrong?" he asked gently. Emily's voice trembled. "One night we went into the woods. Daddy, he slipped, he fell." She shook her head. "I thought I lost him. I ran, Buddy ran after me. And then Coda, he remembered. He knew where to go. I didn't even have to tell him everything, he just knew." Reyes glanced down at Coda. The German shepherd sat perfectly still, head tilted slightly as if acknowledging every word Emily said. The officer had worked with Coda for years, trained him, relied on him, and yet he had never seen the dog act with such certainty, such purpose, except in life-and-death situations. Emily's small shoulders shook as she whispered, "I carried the secret all this time. That night, I was supposed to protect him, to lead him where he needed to be, but I didn't know if I could. Buddy stayed with me, and Coda, he guided us." Reyes's chest tightened. "Emily, you did exactly what you needed to do. You saved your father." She shook her head. "I didn't save him. Buddy did. Coda did. I just walked." The wind whispered through the trees, rustling leaves above them like a soft sigh. The shadows shifted. The woods felt alive, aware of what had just been revealed. Emily continued, quieter now. "Buddy was trained before Daddy got him. He was a police dog before Coda. They were brothers in the unit. They remembered each other, and when I led Coda here, he remembered too. He remembered Buddy. He remembered me. That's why he followed me. That's why he didn't leave." Reyes felt a lump rise in his throat. The story didn't make sense on paper, but watching it unfold, seeing the trust between a little girl and two enormous dogs, it was undeniable. He had never witnessed loyalty or intuition like this in his career. Emily's eyes grew distant, her voice barely audible. "I couldn't tell anyone. Daddy, he wanted it to be quiet. The neighbors, the cops, they wouldn't understand. They asked questions. They'd say I was too small, too little, but Coda knew, Buddy knew, and I knew where to walk." Reyes placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Emily, you were brave, braver than anyone I've met. Do you understand that?" She looked up at him, tear-streaked face, and whispered, "I just wanted him to be safe. I didn't care about me. I just wanted him safe." Reyes's throat tightened. He looked at the two dogs flanking her, each sensing her emotions, each giving her silent strength. Coda pressed his head gently against her shoulder. Buddy nudged her hand. It was a quiet affirmation. She wasn't alone, not for a second. "Emily," Reyes said softly, "your father, he's alive because of you. You carried him through the night. You led the right people. You led the right dogs. That's what saved him." Emily didn't respond immediately. She only hugged the leashes closer, pressing her face into Buddy's fur. Then she whispered, "I just want him to be okay. That's all I want." Reyes knelt beside her, thinking carefully. He had handled countless missing person cases, but nothing like this. Nothing where a child, a dog, and a veteran police K9 had worked together instinctively to prevent a tragedy. He looked around the clearing. The darkness had grown heavier. Leaves rustled in the wind. Shadows flickered like ghosts of the night. He realized the woods still held secrets, questions that needed answers. How did Emily instinctively know where to lead Coda? How had the dogs remembered each other after years apart? And most importantly, what exactly had happened to her father before he fell? Emily seemed to read his thoughts. "It wasn't an accident," she said quietly. "Someone was there, someone pushed him." Reyes froze. The pieces were starting to fall into place. The father's fall, the hidden location in the woods, the injuries. This wasn't a random accident. Someone had been there. Someone had tried to harm him. Emily's eyes glistened with a mix of fear and resolve. "I didn't see his face, but I know what he wanted. I know why Daddy," her voice trembled and broke, "why he didn't fight back. He wanted me safe. Buddy safe. Coda safe. That's why he didn't fight." Reyes exhaled slowly, the weight of the night settling over him. The story Emily carried wasn't just about survival. It was about choices, protection, and sacrifices made in silence. He looked at her again, seeing not just a frightened child, but a strategist, a survivor, a leader. "Emily, you've been carrying a heavy burden, but it's over now. We're going to make sure your father gets help, and we'll find out who did this. You did the hardest part. You led us here." Emily's small lips quivered, and she nodded. She leaned against Coda and Buddy, letting herself feel the safety she had earned. Reyes glanced around the clearing again, sensing that the night still held one more secret. Something Coda and Buddy knew, something Emily had felt but could not yet explain. The city beyond the woods would never believe what had just occurred. The courage, the loyalty, and the instincts that had guided this child through terror and darkness defied reason. But Reyes understood. He had seen it with his own eyes. He knew the bond between Emily and the dogs was something extraordinary, something that had saved lives. And yet, he also knew the truth Emily had begun to reveal was only part of the story. Because the moment they stepped out of the clearing, the investigation would reveal another shocking layer. A reality so complex and unsettling it would shake the city to its core. And Emily, she would be at the center of it. The next morning the city was buzzing. News vans lined Maple Street. Reporters shouted questions, cameras rolling, as neighbors clutched coffee cups and smartphones, rewatching the night's viral footage. The little girl who had walked a police dog through the darkness, leading him to a missing father and a lost K9, had become the focus of local and national attention. Officer Daniel Reyes had requested a quiet morning for Emily at the station, a chance for her to process what had happened. But the press didn't respect quiet. They crowded outside, cameras pointed, microphones extended, eager for a soundbite, a photo, anything that would make the story bigger. Inside, Emily sat quietly in the corner of the briefing room. Buddy leaned against her knees, head resting on her lap. Coda sat a few feet away, ears alert, eyes scanning every movement. Reyes poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the table. He had an uneasy feeling, one he couldn't shake. Something about last night didn't make sense. He pulled out the police database on Coda and Buddy, running a comparison. And then the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. Coda and Buddy hadn't just known each other. They had trained together years ago in the same K9 unit. They had been partners, best friends, brothers in every sense a dog could be. Buddy had been retired, adopted by Emily's father, and trained to protect the family. Coda had remained on active duty, responding to calls across the city. It all clicked. Coda had recognized the scent, the bond, the history. He had remembered Buddy, remembered their shared training, remembered the signals that only the two of them could understand. And Emily, small, fragile, yet unshakable, had instinctively understood how to lead Coda to her lost companion. Reyes felt a chill. This wasn't just luck. This wasn't coincidence. This was memory and instinct combined with human intuition, and it had saved lives. He knelt beside Emily. "Do you know how special this is?" he asked softly. Emily didn't look up. "I just walked," she said quietly. "You did just walk," Reyes said firmly. "You led a police dog through the dark to save your father, and you brought his old partner back. Do you know what that means?" She shrugged slightly, eyes still on Buddy. "It means the two dogs, they remembered each other," Reyes explained. "They recognized the bond, and because of you they could reconnect, guide each other, and save your dad. That's extraordinary." Emily nodded, but the weight of it seemed to press down on her shoulders. Reyes noticed that even in this room, away from the woods and the chaos, she carried something much heavier than any child should. Then the phone on the table rang. Reyes answered. "Reyes." The voice on the other end was clipped, professional. "We need you in for a press conference. The city wants a statement about the incident last night, your K-9 team's heroism, and the child involved." Reyes felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. He glanced at Emily. She looked up briefly, eyes wide. "I don't want to talk to them," she said softly. "I know," Reyes said. "We'll handle it together, but the truth about Coda and Buddy, it needs to be told." When they arrived at the station, the media swarm was unlike anything Reyes had anticipated. Cameras flashed, microphones jostled, reporters shouted questions. Reyes cleared his throat. "I'd like to introduce Emily Harper," he said, guiding her gently to stand beside him. Buddy and Coda stood by her, perfect, calm, obedient. This child led her police dog to a missing person and reunited two K-9 partners separated for years. Her courage and instinct saved a life last night, and she deserves recognition. The cameras clicked. Reporters whispered among themselves. Some tried to ask questions, but Emily, surprisingly composed, didn't answer. She only hugged Buddy closer, Coda's head resting gently on her shoulder. Reyes continued. Coda and Buddy were once partners in the same unit. They shared training, missions, and a bond that only dogs like this can form. When Emily led Coda to her father last night, she unknowingly triggered that bond. The dogs remembered each other, remembered their training, and acted instinctively to save him. This is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it in my career. The room erupted into whispers. Cameras focused on the dogs. Reporters scribbled furiously. Social media would explode in minutes. The city would be talking about this story for weeks. Emily shifted slightly. "They're friends," she said quietly, her small voice breaking through the chaos. "They are more than friends," Reyes said. "They're brothers. And because of that bond and because of Emily's bravery, your father survived last night." For a moment, the room was still. Even the reporters seemed to pause, sensing the gravity of the story unfolding before them. Then the questions began. How did the child know where to go? How did the dog recognize her? Was this a coincidence or training? Reyes shook his head. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't just training. It was instinct, memory, and courage combined. And I don't think we'll ever fully understand it. But what happened last night proves something remarkable. Loyalty, courage, and intuition can save lives in ways we never imagine. Emily stood quietly, hugging the leashes. Buddy rested his head against her chest. Coda leaned slightly toward her, eyes calm but alert. They were silent, yet their presence spoke louder than any headline. Outside, the city was beginning to wake up to the story. Social media exploded with clips of Emily walking Coda and Buddy reunited, the father being carried safely from the ravine. People were calling it miraculous. Some called it inspiring. Others questioned the truth. But Reyes knew exactly what had happened. He had seen it with his own eyes. Emily had been the center of it, but the dogs had made it possible. Their bond had transcended training, time, and separation, and the city would never forget it. Later, in the quiet of the station, Emily sat with Buddy on her lap and Coda at her feet. Reyes poured himself another cup of coffee, glancing at the girl who had become a hero overnight. "Do you know why Coda followed you?" he asked gently. Emily looked up, eyes wide. "Because Buddy was lost, and he knew I could bring him back." Reyes nodded slowly. "Exactly, he remembered the bond, and he trusted you." Emily leaned against him briefly, exhausted but unbroken. "I just wanted everyone to be safe," she whispered. "And you did," Reyes said softly. "You saved your dad, you saved Buddy, and you reunited Coda. That's more than anyone could ask for." Outside, the city was still talking. Social media buzzed. Headlines flashed. "Little girl leads police dog to missing father. 2K9 brothers reunited in heroic rescue. The girl who walked a police dog." But inside, in that quiet station room, Emily, Coda, and Buddy rested. And for the first time since the chaos of the night, there was a sense of peace. A fragile, earned peace, knowing that the bond between humans and dogs had transcended fear, darkness, and tragedy. Yet Reyes knew the story wasn't over. There were questions: how the father ended up in the ravine, who had caused the fall, and the full truth behind the night in the woods. The city had celebrated a miraculous reunion, but the shadows of the woods held secrets that were just beginning to surface. And Emily, she would be the key to uncovering them. The morning air in the city had a crisp chill, but the woods behind Maple Street remained heavy with dampness and shadow. Officer Daniel Reyes returned, this time with a small team of officers and forensics experts. They had to be methodical. Last night had been miraculous, but the investigation wasn't over. There were still unanswered questions. Why had Emily's father ended up in the ravine? Who had been there before? And most importantly, where was Buddy truly, and how had Coda known where to go? Emily walked ahead, small but determined, holding the worn leashes tightly. Coda and Buddy flanked her like twin shadows, each responding to her silent commands, moving in perfect synchronization. "This is it, Emily," Reyes said quietly, keeping his voice calm. "Let's see everything clearly this time." The clearing came into view. The remnants of the previous night, the jacket, the muddy shoe, the shallow ravine, were still visible. Reyes noticed the indentations in the soil, marks where Buddy had scurried, where Coda had barked, and where Emily had led them with purpose. Coda stopped suddenly, nose twitching. Buddy did the same. The two dogs stiffened simultaneously, growls low but insistent. Emily crouched, pointing to a hollow under a fallen tree, partially concealed by leaves and debris. "He's here," she whispered. Reyes and the officers approached cautiously. The hollow was tight, muddy, but inside, a pair of eyes reflected the flashlight beams. Buddy had been trapped, not injured beyond recognition, but weak, shivering, and dehydrated. He had been alone for hours, waiting, unable to find his way out. Emily's small hands trembled as she reached down. "Buddy," she said softly. The dog whimpered, pressing his head against her chest. Coda nudged him gently with his nose, almost reassuringly. The two dogs pressed their heads together, their reunion silent but powerful, as if conveying a lifetime of trust and memory in a single moment. The medics on site quickly assessed Buddy. He was malnourished, tired, but otherwise physically intact. They lifted him carefully, placing him on a stretcher, and Emily followed closely, holding both leashes while Coda stayed alert beside her. Reyes watched, heart pounding. He had seen many rescues in his career, but never anything like this. The instinctive coordination between a child and two highly trained dogs. This wasn't just heroism, It was fate, memory, and courage entwined. As the medics loaded Buddy into the ambulance, Emily whispered, "I knew he'd be here. I just knew." Reyes knelt beside her. "You led him here, Emily. You didn't just know, you made it happen." Emily looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. "I had to. He's my family." Reyes glanced at Coda, who sat alert, scanning the woods. Even now his eyes were sharp, ears swiveling, muscles coiled. The German shepherd had remembered every detail of his old partner, Buddy, and had led them directly to him without hesitation. It wasn't just instinct. It was memory, loyalty, and the invisible bond of their shared past. Forensics officers began combing the area, documenting footprints, claw marks, and other evidence. It became clear that Emily's father hadn't simply fallen by accident. Bruising patterns suggested a struggle. Scattered leaves and disturbed dirt indicated someone else had been there before him. Reyes felt his stomach tighten. The miraculous reunion of the dogs and the girl had saved lives, but the truth of the night was more sinister than anyone had realized. Emily, sensing his thoughts, whispered, "I saw him, the man. I didn't know his face, but I know what he did. He wanted Daddy gone, and he didn't care about me or Buddy." Reyes placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We'll find him. We'll make sure he can't hurt anyone else." The medics returned from the ambulance. Buddy was stable, alert, and responsive, though weak. Emily clutched his head gently, whispering assurances to him. Coda sat beside her, alert but calm, as if understanding the gravity of what had just happened. Reyes watched the three of them, realizing the full scope of what had occurred. Emily had carried a secret too heavy for a child, yet she had acted with precision, courage, and love. Coda had remembered his old partner, Buddy, and had used every ounce of his training to lead them to the lost dog. Together, they had rewritten what was possible in a rescue scenario. Outside the woods, the city had begun to hear of the latest development. Social media buzzed with footage of Emily and the dogs, the miraculous rescue, and the father's condition. The story had gone viral overnight. Little girl walks police dog to rescue missing father and lost K9. But the investigation was far from over. The bruised patterns, the disturbed leaves, the subtle signs of struggle, they all pointed to foul play. Someone had been in the woods before them, someone intent on causing harm. Emily, holding Buddy and standing between the two dogs, looked at Reyes. "Will he be okay?" she asked, voice trembling. "Yes," Reyes said firmly. "Thanks to you, he's alive, but we have work to do. We'll find out who did this and why, and they'll pay for what they tried to do." Emily nodded, small but resolute. Buddy pressed his head against her chest. Coda leaned slightly into her side. The three of them formed a silent, unbreakable line of trust, love, and courage. The city would celebrate a miraculous reunion, but the shadows of the woods held secrets that were only beginning to emerge. Emily, Buddy, and Coda had survived the night, but the truth behind the father's fall, and the threat that lingered, would soon shake the city to its core. Reyes took a deep breath, looking at Emily. "You led us here. You carried everyone through the dark, but the story isn't finished yet. Are you ready for the rest?" Emily's hands tightened on the leashes. "I have to be," she said quietly. And with that, Officer Reyes realized that this little girl, flanked by two extraordinary dogs, wasn't just the hero of the night. She was the key to uncovering the shocking truth that would rock the city and reveal a story far more complex, dangerous, and emotional than anyone could have imagined. The woods were quiet again, but only for a moment. The truth was coming, and no one, no journalist, neighbor, or city official, was ready for what Emily was about to reveal. The city had awoken to a story that no one could stop talking about. Social media feeds were flooded with clips of Emily walking Coda through the darkness, the reunion between Buddy and Coda, and the dramatic discovery of her father in the ravine. News anchors called it miraculous. Police chiefs called it extraordinary. But behind the cameras and hashtags, Officer Daniel Reyes knew there was more, far more. that the public didn't yet understand. In the quiet briefing room of the police station, Emily sat on a chair, Buddy resting on her lap, Coda at her side. Reyes leaned against the table, a folder of forensics and witness statements open before him. He took a deep breath. "Emily, it's time we tell the city the truth about what really happened that night in the woods." Emily's small hands tightened on the leashes. "I'm ready," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was a steel in it, a bravery that made Reyes pause. The forensics report was clear. Emily's father hadn't fallen by accident. Bruises on his arms and shoulders, the pattern of his clothing, and the disturbed soil indicated someone else had been there. Someone had pushed him during a confrontation, likely panicking when he realized he could be caught. Reyes reviewed witness statements and traffic camera footage. It painted a picture of a man, unknown to Emily and her father, lingering near the woods the night of the incident. The investigation had picked up his car leaving the area hurriedly, but there were no clear identifiers yet. Emily looked down at Buddy. "I remember seeing him. I didn't know his face, but I knew he was the one." Reyes nodded. "We've identified him. He'll be arrested shortly. Charges will include assault, attempted manslaughter, and endangerment. You did the right thing, Emily." Emily blinked slowly, absorbing the weight of the truth. He wanted Daddy gone, but why? Reyes exhaled. "It seems your father had been in some financial dispute. Arguments escalated, but none of it matters anymore because you, Buddy, and Coda made sure he survived." Emily's lips quivered. "I just wanted everyone safe." "And you did," Reyes said, "more than anyone could have hoped for." Outside, the media circus was reaching a fever pitch. Cameras followed the ambulance as it transported Emily's father to the hospital. Social media erupted with clips of Emily and the dogs, complete with captions like "The girl who walked a police dog" and "K9 heroes reunite." But now Reyes realized the story wasn't just about heroics. It was about courage, instinct, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and dogs. When the city's press conference began, reporters clamored for answers. Reyes stood at the podium, flanked by Emily, her father now conscious and stable, Buddy, and Coda. He cleared his throat. "Last night," he began, "a remarkable event took place. Emily Harper, 7 years old, led her police dog, Coda, through dark and dangerous woods to locate her missing father. Along the way, they found Buddy, a retired K9 who had been lost and trapped. What makes this extraordinary is not only Emily's bravery, but the connection between Coda and Buddy. These dogs trained together years ago and remembered each other, and they remembered Emily's father. Through instinct, memory, and loyalty, they guided us to him." Cameras flashed, microphones jostled, reporters scribbled furiously. Emily's father stepped forward. His voice was hoarse but filled with gratitude. "I owe my life to my daughter and these two amazing dogs. Without them, he paused, swallowing hard. "I wouldn't be here today." Emily held Buddy tightly, stroking his fur, while Coda pressed his head gently against her shoulder. The image was powerful. A little girl flanked by two extraordinary dogs, all three heroes in a city struggling to comprehend what had just happened. One reporter shouted, "Officer Reyes, are you saying this was instinct? Luck? How did Coda know where to go?" Reyes nodded solemnly. "It was instinct, yes. Memory, yes, but also trust. Emily didn't just lead Coda, she led him to a place he remembered where Buddy needed to be found. It's a bond that transcends training. It's loyalty in its purest form." The crowd murmured. Social media posts surged with hashtags and clips of the moment Coda nudged Buddy, and Emily whispered reassurances to them both. The city watched in awe, disbelief, and awe. But the truth went deeper. Forensics confirmed that the father's fall was no accident. The man responsible had been tracked and arrested. It was a revelation that shocked the community. Someone had intended to harm Emily's father, and by extension, his family. Without Emily's courage and the dog's instincts, the outcome could have been fatal. Emily, holding both leashes, spoke softly but firmly. "They're my family. I had to make sure everyone was safe. I couldn't let anything happen." Her words echoed across the city. They were simple, but heavy with meaning. People watching from homes, offices, and streets were struck by the clarity of her bravery. By the end of the day, the story had dominated news cycles. Headlines celebrated heroism, loyalty, and the miraculous reunion of K-9 partners. The city began to see Emily not just as a child, but as a symbol of courage, instinct, and the extraordinary bond humans share with animals trained to protect. Officer Reyes walked Emily and the dogs back to the cruiser. He glanced at her father, now stable and smiling weakly from the ambulance. "You know, Emily," he said softly, "what you did, it's not something that happens every day. You'll be remembered for this." Emily's small hand stroked Buddy. "I just wanted to make sure he was okay," she said quietly. Coda nudged her gently as if confirming her words. Buddy pressed his head against her chest, eyes calm. Together they were a unit, a family, heroes in a way the city would never forget. The story spread beyond the city's limits. National news picked it up. Social media erupted. People marveled at the courage of a child and the intelligence, loyalty, and memory of police dogs. The hashtag girl who walked AK9 trended across multiple platforms. Videos of Emily, Coda, and Buddy went viral. But in the quiet moments, Officer Reyes knew there was more to the story than headlines could convey. Emily had carried a secret, a courage far beyond her years. Coda had remembered not just a partner but a mission, and Buddy had survived thanks to trust and instinct. The city celebrated the reunion. Justice had been served, but the woods behind Maple Street remained a quiet, solemn place, a place where fear, bravery, and instinct had collided in ways no one could have predicted. As Emily walked back to her father, Buddy and Coda flanking her like guardians, Reyes realized that this story would live long in the hearts of those who witnessed it. It was more than a rescue. It was proof that courage comes in all shapes and sizes, that loyalty can transcend years and distance, and that even the smallest among us can change the course of fate. And every time Coda passed Maple Street, he slowed, ears alert, eyes searching, listening, waiting, remembering. Because he knew, as did Emily, that some bonds are unbreakable, and some truths, no matter how shocking, must be faced together. The city had been shocked. The story had captivated the nation. But the truth, the bravery, the loyalty, the instinct was timeless. And Emily, with Buddy and Coda by her side, had become a living legend in the quietest, most powerful way imaginable.